For those of you that aren't aware, Andrew Warner is the creator of Mixergy. It's a site for entrepreneurs, interviews, and courses. He's done tons of interviews. So if you go to Mixergy, you can find over 1,000 interviews with thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and they're all really in-depth and really helpful for anyone who's trying to start and run a business. So today we got Andrew Warner in from San Francisco, and he is going to interview, she was just judging, Goldin from Hint Inc., who she's the CEO and founder of Hint, produces all natural fruit essence water. So water was Hint. She's making her way down the stage here. She previously was a VP of shopping and e-commerce and partnerships at AOL. She's also based out of San Francisco, and we're super excited to have them both here today. So let's give it a warm welcome for both Kara and Andrew.
I have. So the big complaint I get at Mixergy for the kind of interviews I do is that I'm too freaking intense. How much revenue did you get? Where'd you get your first customer, etc. So I thought, I'll stop by Fremont, get a drink, loosen up. Maybe the two of us can just have a decent chat. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here and doing double duty.
Yeah.
Judging and doing an interview.
Yeah.
So.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, it looks like you might need to hold it close, but they can hear you.
Okay, good.
So I found out that your dad created a famous brand in the food industry.
Yep.
Which one?
So, Healthy Choice.
So, Healthy Choice is everywhere. Was he filthy rich?
So no, not really. And it was interesting, and probably, it took me many years to figure this out, but probably the reason why I went and started my own company after working for some very large companies. He actually started Healthy Choice, interestingly enough, because my mom, after years of being an at-home mother, decided to go back to work when she was in her 40s. I was the last of 5 kids. And went back to be a buyer in a department store. And instead of eating Stouffer's TV dinners, my dad was like, or learning to cook, he was like, there has to be a better way. And so he developed Healthy Choice, true story. And he was really intrigued by the stories of the farmers and the shrimp fishermen and many of the farm to table aspect that you see today. And this was, late 1970s, early 80s when he was developing this. And it's fascinating today because I think in large companies today, when they're developing brands, it's not really about the farmers and the actual story of the product. And it's much more about, this is the title of the brand and this is what we're doing, but not really about the story. And that's really what my dad wanted to get across.
And he didn't do it as an entrepreneur. He did it within ConAgra. And then one day after he built up this brand, ConAgra said, we all need to have MBAs. And what happened to your dad?
Yeah, so my dad did not have an MBA. And after developing, still to this day, the most successful launch in ConAgra, he was laid off. And
let's just let that sink in. The guy builds up this brand. You can go into your supermarket today, you can buy it, and many people do. He didn't have an MBA and he was let go of.
Yeah, it was crazy. That was the 80s. The 80s was all about having an MBA. And so he was laid off. And then the shrimp fishermen off the coast of Georgia decided not to sell to ConAgra any longer because my dad wasn't there.
Wow.
And and then they told their friends in the salmon industry that they weren't going to get salmon. So salmon and shrimp were kind of the core ingredients for a lot of the Healthy Choice products then and still today. And so they hired my dad back quickly into the company. And it's fascinating because he really drove into me. I mean, this is what happens in large companies, that they come up with crazy ideas, and even if it's a great idea, you sort of have to live with what they think is sort of the thing to go with at the time.
So this is your idea. You didn't develop it within ConAgra or another company. You're an entrepreneur. I've got in my phone here, I keep all my notes in here, I asked my researchers to do some digging on you, and here's what they found out. Tell me if this is right. Is your revenue, where is that? Does that seem right? Is it $50 million?
So we'll do more than that this year.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty great, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
$50 million.
So we're probably, I mean, we're a private company, but we're probably closer to doing 70.
70. 50 was last year or 2014?
So, in last year.
2014,
Yeah,
right.
last year's revenues. So a year ago, and just a little bit of my background, so I ran AOL's e-commerce group and left AOL and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I didn't really want to do AOL 2.0. And I was staying at home, having babies, and I have 4 kids now. At the time I had 3, and was 40 pounds overweight, had super bad acne, and a massive Diet Coke addiction. And really didn't feel great, was super low on energy, went to a bunch of different doctors, and the net of it was all these doctors were willing to give me all kinds of pills, all kinds of injections. This was almost 10 years ago. And I was like, do I have type 2 diabetes? Do I, what exactly is going on? And the one thing that consistently came back was, you're hormonal, you've had babies really close to one another. And so I said, how do I get unhormonal, and all this other, stuff that seemed to make sense to me. And the net of it is I went home, and prior to taking any medications, I started looking at what I was eating and drinking. And I talked to my friends that I worked with in tech at AOL, and I said, I really think what I'm putting into my system is making me sick. And they were like, no, you're just eating cookies, and you're like doing all this other stuff. You're not really, doing everything that you're saying. And I was like, no, I'm like working out, half hour, 45 minutes every day, and nothing's really happening. And so I tried to drink plain water, and I committed to drinking plain water for a month, and really quietly just gave up that Diet Coke. I wasn't drinking 1 or 2. I totally cold turkey gave it up. And 3 weeks later, I lost 24 pounds. I mean, massive. 24 pounds is a lot of weight to lose in 3 weeks. No more acne. My stomach was better. I had high energy. And I was like, this is crazy. Why don't doctors actually have you go look in your cabinet in your refrigerator and look at what you're really eating and drinking? And so I did that, and by day 2, I was like, water's so boring. I just never was a water drinker, and so I started throwing fruit in the water. And friends would see me out walking or at the gym, and I always have fruit in my water. And they started explaining to me about these things like vitamin water and all the flavored waters out there. And I had never really touched those. Maybe I had one once, but I was a Diet Coke drinker, so I wasn't knowledgeable about it. And I, hadn't worked at Coke or Pepsi, even though my dad had worked in the food industry. And I really felt like it was such a scam that things were called water, and they weren't really water at all. And as my husband said, you have way too much time on your hands now. You were working 70, 90 hours a week, and now you're sitting there, talking about water and what is water. And so anyway, 3 months later, I lose 40 pounds, and I'm like, this is crazy. How is this happening? And so I, just for kicks, took the product to Whole Foods in San Francisco where I live, and I said, so can I get a product on the shelf if I just cook it in my kitchen and take the fruit and boil it down? And he's like, well, you need a name, and you need to bottle it, and you need shelf life. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. It's totally different than what I've been doing for the last few years. And so I got it on the shelf, and 2 days before I was actually delivering my 4th child, and I said, I'm going to be out of commission for a couple of days, but let me know how it goes. And 2 days later, they sold 10 cases at the Whole Foods location in California and Franklin. And they called, and they said, we need more stock. So I went home after having the baby and made some more supply, and
how did you get it on the shelf in there? Did you just walk into Whole Foods and say, I got this thing?
I did. It was just, I was just what the heck, right? I was just what do I have to lose? And I didn't know anybody, I just like went and did it.
No funding. At what point did you go out for outside funding? I was talking to a lot of people here who came to the event, and raising money is a big issue for them. At what point did you raise money?
So, I'd say for the first year and a half, I didn't even view it as a company. Like I was like selling it at Whole Foods, and Whole Foods National was calling us saying like, oh, we want more. We didn't even we were just getting to understand what a shelf life was, and I mean, maybe we had a 6-week shelf life, but really in the beverage industry, you need like a 6-month shelf life at least, and we didn't know how to do that. So until we actually could kind of nail down the product and know what we were doing, we were really hesitant in taking friends and family money. Basically because I had to face those people all the time, and I wanted to make sure that I was really confident that I was going to do this. And part of me was still like, I don't know, maybe I still want to go back into tech. I don't know if I really want to be doing this. And friends would call me and be like, wait, what are you doing? You're doing a beverage company? What exactly is that all about? So year 2, I think we really started taking some money in. And then,
how far did the business get before you took money in? Do you remember revenues or milestones?
So we were probably about $1.5 million in revenue.
So let's get to how you got to that. How did you go from an idea,
I
bottle in a store, I bottle and then take to the store, to $1 million? Where did the next set of customers come from after that original Whole Foods?
So we took it around to stores. I mean, I think that the other thing that, I talk about a lot, that, even though I had risen to be a vice president at AOL, I sort of miss the scrappiness. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with being scrappy. I'm okay with bottling, going to the bottling plant. I thought it was super cool that I was developing a product that people were holding and drinking, and I still get super excited about it. And we were also doing something really different that wasn't in the market. And so when we went out to stores, they'd be like, oh, okay, so you're not like Diet Coke, but you're kind of like vitamin water. And I'm like, no, there's no sugar. And they're like, oh, so what's it sweetened with? And still to this day, I mean, we have grocery buyers and consumers that ask that. And that's really the core of the brand, which, again, I couldn't actually define it when I was coming up with it, but we don't use sweeteners, because that's really what I, as a customer, wanted to move away from, was the sweeteners. And so
tell me, what scrappiness look like when you're walking in a store? Is it just you, and you say we, was it you and your husband in that first year?
Sometimes. I mean, he was coming with me sometimes.
Okay, so you just walk in, you say, you love this store, how do we get hint in here? What was your sales pitch?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of walk up to the guy, ask him who makes the buying decisions, and just do it.
Then I read you went to a trade show early on also?
Yeah.
That helped you?
Yeah, so the food industry has a few different trade shows, and so we went to those, and just to get the word out. And
you had a bad booth, I read?
Yeah.
And so how did you make a bad booth still pay off for you?
I think if you've got an idea that is different and it is not a Me Too kind of, company, then people start to listen a little bit closer. Okay. I think another, major milestone, Google called.
Before we get to Google, if you have an idea that's a little strange or different, people do tend to listen, but they also will blow it off and go, I don't understand it, it doesn't fit into my worldview, I'm used to sodas and waters, and you're saying you're neither one, right? And especially when it comes to tech, how do you help people get it when they don't fully get it, when it doesn't fit into a clear category?
So I think you tell the story on what problem it's solving and why you did it.
Tell the story about the problem it's solving, and how did you tell it when you were walking into a grocery store? Did you say the story that you just told us?
So yeah, I mean that I was drinking Diet Coke, and when I eliminated sweeteners, this is what happened.
Okay, all right, and you were starting to say about Google?
So Google reached out to us, and being a Bay Area company, had heard that we were doing something, and my husband was at Netscape and knew a couple of the guys, the early guys at Google, and they said, listen, we want to offer free food and beverages for our employees, and we'd really love to try Hint in here. And that was massive, and still to this day is massive.
Why? Why is one company giving these drinks out to their employees such a massive change versus Whole Foods, which is your biggest client?
So their initiative, and really if you're in the food and beverage industry inside businesses, they look at Google as really a disruptor, a changer in their business, because it's not just about offering great food, which on the front end is what consumers see and employees see as like really great, but on the back end of it, it's about insurance premiums and making their employees healthier. And so they would highlight products like Hint versus soda as helping them to save costs. So that word got out really, really quickly in Silicon Valley. I think they just talk to one another.
Okay.
I mean, they all know each other, right,
Yeah.
in the industry. So they started talking about it. So today we're the largest beverage and Silicon Valley firms,
Okay.
and then we've also, continued to maintain that scrappiness. I mean, if somebody was a Google employee and then decided to start a business in South Park and they want Hint, just like they used to have at Google, we'll deliver it to them. I mean, we're not sort of above that versus, if you were to call a Coke or a Pepsi today, like you have to have a, large minimum in order to get anything delivered.
Like we met outside here, and one of the first questions you had for me was, so did the Hint bottles arrive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly.
To that level, we're still concerned about it.
Yeah, that's what we do, so.
So then you were saying you got to $1 million in sales. Scrappiness meaning knocking door to door, telling your story, going to a trade show, telling your story, making sales a little at a time, and then it's time to raise money. Who do you go to first to raise money?
So we had a friend who was actually one of our distributors on the East Coast. So another thing that we did really quickly beyond launching in Whole Foods, we decided that we're a San Francisco brand, and we wanted to make sure that this was actually something that could be enjoyed throughout the U.S. And having lived in New York for many years, I really believed that if you can't succeed in New York, you probably can't succeed. And so we launched it in New York City, sort of thinking that if it fails, we'll shut the whole company down. And very quickly, it caught on in New York City as well. And so most people in the beverage industry think what we did was super crazy in launching in New York City and San Francisco. Very expensive and very crazy, but we figured it's going to be a way for us to learn whether or not we're going to fail now versus later if we wait to go to the East Coast. And I think, part of not being in the industry, but just actually being forced to think, like, what is the right business decision? Because everybody we talked to who had been in the beverage industry said, that is absolutely crazy that you guys are even considering launching in New York City. You'll be dead.
Because New York is hard, and it makes it even harder if you're not local.
Super hard, super controlled by, the large beverage companies, and they're like, you're just gonna die. And
what did you do to get through their distribution and to get into the little mom and pop stores and other stores?
So the same thing we did in San Francisco, literally got in our car and took cases in and just were super scrappy. And then
you hand it to them and you say, take it, if you sell it, great, if not, we'll take it back. But what's the deal?
Yeah, so I think it just depends. So our model was, if we give product away, that's really expensive for us to do that. So we said to them that we would take it back if it didn't sell. Mm-hmm. And frankly, we didn't have anyone who called us to get it back. I mean, we were doing something so different that just didn't come up. We didn't have super large distribution. I mean, our first neighborhood was Chelsea, and we were just made sure that we really, really got Chelsea right. And then went into the Upper East Side, and then, and sort of went into these different neighborhoods just to make sure that we got it right. And then we got a distributor in New York City, and we thought, oh, that's really great. We'll be everywhere all at once. And what we realized is that, when you're in a distributor with large brands like Monster and Vitamin Water and some of the others, you need to have your own people still selling and still getting out there. And there needs to be a network that is really, influencers that are really spreading.
So you had both coasts, and then you went looking for funding?
So so one of our distributors on the East Coast, actually just outside of New York, closer to Boston area, reached out to us and said, I've got these investors that are in Belgium that are actually the Stella Beer family, and they're very, very interested in what you guys were doing. They were investors in Vitamin Water before Coke bought it, and they'd love to chat with you guys. And so we sat down with them, and they said, listen, we want to invest outside of beer in non-alcoholic drinks, and we'd really love to invest in you guys. And so so they invested in us almost 7 years now, and 7 years ago now. And today they're actually the largest shareholder of InBev, and that happened all after us, and are making a play now for Miller as well. So
how much did they invest in you?
So over the course of 7 years, they've invested close to $25 million in the company.
How much of the company do they own now?
So that's another thing. We've never wanted to lose control of the company, and we've never gone over 50% of allowing. And so we've been very cautious about that along the way.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but does owning 50% or more give you control, or did you do anything
Not
else
necessarily.
to give you? No, so what else did you do to give you control?
So we looked at investors and said, if we're not interested in talking any further unless we actually continue to maintain control. And we've done that for the last 10 years.
What do you do to maintain control?
So the board, we control the board, we control key hires. Those are probably the two biggest.
Then you went to AngelList.
Yeah, so we were talking about this right before. It's really, really unique because sort of the thinking is once you have large investors in that you really can't take in any angels, and obviously there's exceptions to that. But we went to the Stella Beer family and said, hey, listen, we want to do this direct-to-consumer play that we've got a lot of people who are calling our office that are we have over 20 flavors, and some of the flavors aren't in their local stores, and they want to have it delivered direct to their home. And their response was that consumers won't buy cases of water online, and so we're not interested in supporting that. And so even though we actually had the right as a controlling interest in the company, we were like, I don't know, these guys we like them, they're like big shareholders, we don't want to piss them off, and so we said, listen, can we take this out on Cloudsource funding and raise a little bit of money so that we can fund this and see what happens. And so a couple of our friends were on AngelList and said, we'll just put it up as a syndicate on AngelList and see what happens. And so we raised $2 million on AngelList in about a week. And I think the key thing for us was having the right syndicate, but also the right early investors that came in on AngelList. And I think the way that works is, people kind of follow those certain syndicates on AngelList.
Who was the syndicate?
So it was a guy named Adil who his lead engineer at ModCloth.
So what made him the right guy?
So I think there were just people that follow him, right? That sort of think he's pretty smart and he knows what's going on.
How did you connect with him?
Through friends.
Okay.
In the Bay Area.
What's your friendship situation like? We're not friends. How did I become friends with you?
I don't know.
No, because in all seriousness, what is your process? Do you have dinners at your house? Do you play with each other's kids in the playground? What's the deal?
Yeah,
no. What is your process?
Adil just had a baby, but no, it's funny. I
should send him a gift.
I know, right?
What is your process in all seriousness?
I don't know how I meet people.
Okay.
You and I will hook up at some point. We'll stay in touch. I don't know how I meet people along the way, but I think that's that's a really interesting point because I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to spend time outside of the office, and it's often hard, right? Especially when you're starting a company to actually get outside. And I actually learned this. I was one of the Ernst & Young entrepreneurs a couple of years ago, and I learned this from Ernst & Young along the way that they really pushed me through the program to get outside of the company because their feeling was that once your company is actually developed, and I think that's a tricky question because I still don't think it is developed. I still view it as it's growing, and so at what point is it developed? Is it developed when we're 50 million in sales, 100 million in sales? I mean, at what point? And I just think that the value of just being outside and sort of meeting people, whether it's at this event or
so a lot of us are getting to know each other at this event, but most of us will lose touch with everyone. What do you do that keeps you from losing touch with the people who you've met at events or who you've gotten to know through work over the years? What do you do to keep those bonds tight so that when you have an opportunity to invest in your company, you know the right person and they're connected enough and care enough about you?
So I send them a case of water. So.
That is what you do.
No, sometimes I do, but I think you just email and just like stay connected with people, and I don't know, if you see articles of people say, hey, I saw this, or I also think like if you're willing to help other people, they'll help you too. I think that there's a big whether it's introductions or spending a few minutes thinking about their business, I think that goes a long way. That people who are, self-absorbed, that are only sitting there thinking about their own company and not sort of thinking about, what you need. I don't think that is very helpful, and ultimately doesn't help anyone.
All right, I see that we've got just about 5 minutes left. I don't want to leave people with the impression that everything was easy, because you did have some challenges, and one of them happened around 2008. The economy really took a dive. You guys had to cut back personally too, right? How did the company get impacted by the economy? So
we actually didn't have any layoffs. We've never in the history of Hint had any layoffs, but what we did do was some of our major companies that were purchasing from us, including Whole Foods, said you'll continue to be in Whole Foods if you give us product for free.
Really?
And we were like, wait, how does that work? That's kind of crazy. And so we said, no, we're not going to do that, and we're willing to be out of Whole Foods. And our customers actually went into Whole Foods and said, what's the deal with Whole Foods, and then continued to, reach out to us and ask us, what was going on. And so Whole Foods soon came back to us and said, we really need you guys. You guys have, developed not just a great product, but also a category that our customers are used to. So I think, we weren't going to cave, right? And I've always said, and said this even at AOL too, it's hard to give stuff away all the time. Right? That's a bad business model. And I still to this day explain that to people. We're willing to do events and lots of stuff, but I mean even major events that we do, I mean most of them are still buying our product. Even if it's at cost, because I want to stay in business, and I explain that to people, and people are pretty understanding about that, but I think sort of knowing what your walkaway is.
All right, what's the best personal part of having made it, of having struggled door to door, of having had your friends say to you, what are you doing? There's no tech in water, why aren't you getting back in the game? And you stuck with it, and you stuck with it after 2008, and stuck with it after your clients asked you for water for free. What's the best part on a personal level of having done it?
So I think totally being passionate and believing in this product and seeing others believe in it too.
It's not like a Tesla or a jet. Do you guys own a jet yet?
So no
jet yet?
No, right. Far from it.
You had to did you fly coach here?
So I did, Southwest. Yeah.
Really?
So,
all right.
Yeah.
You get any money out of the company yet?
So no.
No, really?
No, we have not done that.
No,
actually.
you take a salary though.
We take a salary, and not a crazy salary. We take a decent salary.
Okay.
But we have not taken any money out of the company yet. Frankly, this is my baby, right? We are all in this company, and which is.
What do you say to investors who joined waiting for an exit so they could tell their friends how much money they made on Hint when they hear you say, this is my baby, I'm sticking with it to the end?
So, first of all, we haven't had investors that have a timeline in mind to actually get out. Like, we've really been specific about that, because I think that we were doing something really different, which is waiting for the consumer to actually catch up to where I was from a health perspective. And I think that day is happening now. And I think, the key thing for us is I'm now at a point where it's, what's best for the company will be what we ultimately do. I am working extremely hard all the time. And
I know. How many events were you in? How many cities were you in today?
It's crazy. Yeah, so
Right.
it's a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think, now that the world is catching up to, this, but, we're also looking at potentially taking this company public in the next couple of years, which is,
Wow.
super exciting and interesting too. And whether or not I'll be the right person to actually
Is there pressure on you to leave
that.
at this point?
No, not at all. It's actually making sure I'm staying. I think that's, and it's, my doubting over here, wondering, am I the right person, frankly, to take a company public?
Really?
That's.
How do you deal with that part of your head that says, am I the right person to take a company public? Because I know there are a lot of us who earlier on in the business say, am I the right person to launch a business? Am I the right person to raise money? I'm not like those guys in Silicon Valley. How do you deal with that head stuff yourself?
So for me, I'm in a sort of research phase. I talk to a lot of people who have taken their company public, and I get a lot of various, points on, don't ever do it, it's terrible, or yeah, it's super cool, but, answering to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, shareholder is not all that enjoyable or whatever. So I think for now, I'm just very much in that, phase of trying to understand what do I, personally want to do.
Good. Did you have any head stuff about coming here and being interviewed by me?
No, not
that's
at all.
all right.
It's super easy.
Great. When do we
Awesome
have dinner?
socks.
Oh yeah.
Those are great.
All right.
Super great.
When do we have dinner on your
So,
jet?
yeah.
First you got to a jet.
Thanks,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Yeah.
Tin water.